Welcome, everybody. This is not an Executive Skills Mastery event. It's not a Dundada Society event. This is perhaps, maybe, the first ever Go Ramp Up event. Most of you are members of Go Ramp Up now. Okay, so the subject tonight is business communications. I call it Business Communications 1 because we're definitely going to cover business communications multiple times. There's a lot to it. And it's amazing how fast an hour goes by. So I'm going to be reading from this thing we call a Ramp Up Guide. It's a written document that people in the Pro Academy and the Master Academy get. And I'm going to read from it a lot because I wrote it and it represents what I think about this subject. Please feel free to interrupt me at any time with questions. All right, so to begin with, what is communication? I guess I maybe have a funny way of thinking about things. I think really, logically and literally. So when I think about communication and what it is the transfer of meaning from one person to another person, or from one thing to another thing, right? Communication might be a modem talking to a computer, or the keypad on an ATM going into the computer, right? That's communication. So you're conveying meaning from one thing to another thing, or one person to another person. In business communication, generally, we're talking about conveying meaning, transferring meaning from one person to another person. I have an idea or a thought or an emotion or opinion, and I want you to hold it, or at least be aware that I have it. So I've got to inform you in some way. Okay. Business communication, though, is that communication, but in a work context, in a business context. And so the way I phrased it here is I said the purpose is to facilitate collaborative advancement toward known objectives. It's just fancy talk. It says, hey, I need other people to share this awareness or knowledge. And the reason I need it is because we're in business and we have goals or objectives and we want to move a little bit closer to those goals and objectives. That's why communication takes place. The reason, though, you're trying to get that other person, and this is really important, the reason you're trying to cause that other person to have awareness of or hold your thought, idea, or opinion is because you want to change behavior. You communicate because you want to change behavior. If you didn't want to change, and the behavior might be really slight, but the fact of the matter is you communicate things because you want other people's behavior to change. Very important point. Okay, and I claim in here, business is all about change. It's all about change. It's what business is. Okay, why is it important, right? Why is business communication important? Why is making change occur in business important? Well, the communication is important because in business, hey Deanna, no one person ever, almost ever, knows everything that they need to know. That's why there has to be communication between people, okay? Now, in business, what you're trying to do, unless you're a nonprofit, you're trying to maximize profits. And so you're trying to do two things all the time. Costs need to be as low as you can make them as long as you're achieving your objectives. And your revenues need to be as high as they can be so that the delta, the profit, is maximized. What this means is, and I'm always, as a business person, we're under the go business of Go Ramp Up, right? There's Go Connect, Go Work, Go Live. We're talking Go Work tonight. This is work. This is business, okay? So this is about profit. Making your costs as low as possible is always important. And so communication, I'm going to say something that might sound a little bit like heresy, but your communication should cost as little as possible in all ways. Meaning your communication in business needs to be efficient. The more inefficient it is, the more of people's time you're going to take up, and time is money in business, okay? So a key to communication in business is efficiency, but I'm going to come to a bunch of keys. I think I give 7 or 8, okay? All right, so I say this point could easily be misconstrued, what I just said. You might think, oh, communication should be minimized. No, I'm not saying that at all. In fact, I believe in over-communication. I proselytize and espouse and champion over-communication. And we'll get to the nuance on that in just a minute. Yeah, okay. So all the communication, on the point of efficiency, all the communication should be necessary, and it should be to facilitate understanding, behavior change, and emotional impact. Yeah, you're deliberately trying to impact people's emotions, subtly, because you want to change their willingness. You're trying to impact people's willingness to see something one way or another, or to take action A or action B. So you are trying to have an impact on people's emotions. All right. Very important. Okay. When you're communicating in business, well, actually inside the business, but especially when you're communicating outside to a client or a prospect or a supplier, at all times, at every single moment, every communication you ever have, you are forming your company's brand. You're literally manifesting the brand. So your company is trying to have a brand, a deliberately chosen brand. But, the marketing department doesn't get to control every phone call of yours and message and text. So the reality is all the employees are creating the brand all the time. So be conscious. Every single email, text, voicemail, face-to-face interaction, you are representing and also forming and creating your brand. Not only your business's brand, but your personal brand. And we have a whole workshop and ramp-up guide and go sheet and videos under Go Ramp Up on the subject of personal brand, and it's a good one. I recommend that you look it up. So let's get into the sort of the do's and don'ts, and really these are more the do's, okay? The first is efficiency. So this is the point I made before. Communication should consume as little resources as possible as long as it serves the need. Okay? If you try to reduce communication or be too efficient and you fail to meet the goal or the objective of being profitable or making a behavior change, then you've missed the entire point. Okay? So that said, on the one hand, I say it should be efficient. It should consume as little resources as possible. On the other hand, I'll say that you should over-communicate when a matter is important. And I'll clear that up. So there's a macro view and a micro view. Macro, big, high level, right? Micro, down in the weeds, detail. At a macro level, meaning, say, the number of communications about an important project, over-communicate. I'll tell you about the important project today, and a couple days later, I'll tell you about it again. And a week later, I'll phrase it yet another way. And when it becomes important that you accomplish something, I'll tell you yet again. Because with communication, you want to create a no excuses environment. And what's called call deflection. Okay? So you want to communicate in a way that a person would not have an excuse to have not understood your meaning. And call deflection is a term from help desks. Tech support. You design your product manuals, your instructions, where FAQs, you cover all the bases. You leave no room for there to be a question. Because questions after you have communicated are expensive, no matter how you put it. So if you put a little more thought and effort in nailing your communication, and I'm going to come to this, then you've done it efficiently, so people don't have to come back and say, can you clarify this point? Well, what about that? And where was the location? Very expensive. It'll eat you alive. It can make the difference between profit and loss. So that's efficiency. The next word is specificity. That just means be specific. Okay? Be specific. Specificity. And it's the point that I'm making. Oh, and that's really this issue of no excuse environment and call deflection. And I'm going to give, toward the end, I'm going to give examples where I use all of these things, okay? But specificity is when you're communicating with something, and by the way, on all these, I'm not referring to one specific medium of communication. This could be face-to-face or email or text or billboards or web pages or whatever, okay? But specificity is convey the details that that other person needs in order to successfully make the behavior change you want them to make. You can't be, if you're too vague or general, they're not going to take the behavior. They're not going to make the behavior change that you want. That's specificity. When you're specific, there's another side benefit. People, you create an asset because people perceive, consciously or subconsciously, that you respected them, that you valued their time. You put the effort on you to be clear and detailed and specific. You slowed down from the busy stuff that you were doing to be clear and specific so that they could be successful. They don't really want to call you either. They don't want to follow up and ask you to clarify. That's frustrating, especially when you're busy. You got your own stuff to do. All right. Next one. Orderly. Now, by the way, I'm really just giving you sort of, here's how to optimize communication in business. And I'm going to talk about humanity later. We're under Go Business right now. Under Go Life at some point, I'll talk about interpersonal communications, which will be a lot different than what I'm talking about right now. But business is different, okay? There's overlap on that Venn diagram, but business is different, right? So if this sounds black and white and tough and hard, it's because I'm talking about profit. Profit, right? We're not teaching you how to have an unprofitable business existence, okay? So the next one is called orderly. And what this means is when you talk to somebody or you email them or whatever, you don't know how much time they have to listen to you. And you don't know how much energy they have or how much distraction. So you might want to make 7 or 8 points. They might only have the appetite or the opportunity at that moment to hear 2. So literally order the points that you make to that person in order of importance. Well, I'll show examples later, right? But some people, they start with a preamble. So I was driving here and coming to your office, and I had such a good sandwich, and 20 sentences later, they say, yeah, and so can you meet at 3? You might have only had a few moments. You might need to rush to the boss's office. Instead, it's, could you meet me at 3? And you're thinking, sure, yeah. And it's because when I was driving here, and you're kind of not listening anymore, and I had the sandwich, and you're like, oh, God, okay, yeah, 3, we're going to meet at 3, right? You've enabled that person to succeed because you gave the important information at the beginning. Don't warm up to it, but generally speaking, make the point. It's your call to action is first. Could you meet, do you want to ride bikes on Sunday with me, Derek, at 10 o'clock on the ridge? Because I thought it would be fun, and maybe you should bring the tire repair kit, and you're like, whatever. Get to the point. Orderly. Timely, okay? Timely. And again, I'm thinking business context. Let people know what you need them to know so they will change their behavior within a time frame so that they can successfully do so. A great way to alienate people is to let them know what you needed from them yesterday. Okay? So this requires sort of some vigilance and awareness. You're in a business context and stuff's going down, and you're not just thinking of you and your stuff. You're kind of thinking, I've got constituents. I've got people who are upstream on this project or this task or issue where I'm dependent upon them. But I've also got people downstream, my assistants, my helpers, my colleagues, and they're downstream. I'll hold the football for a little while at some point, and then I got a lateral to them. Well, you don't want to just let them know, hey, by the way, in about 44 seconds from now, Greg, I need you to lead the rest of this workshop. Duh, not adequate. I should have told him yesterday if I wanted him to cover the second half of it. Okay, so timely. Impact. By the way, we don't invent anything earth-shattering at Go Ramp Up. None of this is earth-shattering. It's been around forever. But the idea is we're catching you, we're going to lay it out in an orderly way. And you arrive when it's timely for you to learn this stuff. That's why you're here. Fine. Okay? And so that's the next one is impact. So you have an important point that you need to make, or not very important, and you think, well, what media should I use to convey this meaning? Should I walk up? Hi, I want to tell you how grateful I am that you came to the class today. It's face-to-face. Makes a certain impact. Or I could text Derek. Purple shirt, looking good, right? Right? Depending on the issue, you've got to choose your media deliberately. Generally speaking, we all kind of know this, generally speaking, face-to-face is the way to go, generally speaking. Because it's the most human. You give the most clues and contact points to read that person. Sometimes that's not appropriate or feasible. Phone call, at least it's live, right? So the person can pick up voice inflections. Moving down the scale, email. Oh, man. Now you're really half impaired with email. Gosh, right? You know how easy it is to go wrong. Text, same thing. At least with text, we've learned to make little emoticons and stuff, which, we've only got a few we can use with email. And now there's all these other ways. There's social media, etc. The point is this. Don't just think of what you like, right? Just because you like to text, don't use text for everybody. Think about that person. What's their nature? What do they seem to like? Think about the person because you want to change their behavior, right? So you need to talk to them in that language they prefer, given the situation. So that's impact. The next one is called verify. Okay? There's this cute quote. I've seen it before. It's by George Bernard Shaw. He says, the single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it has taken place. That's where verify comes in. So that doesn't mean every time you send an email, you walk down the hall and say, did you get my email? Did you understand it? What do you think it meant? But you spot check. You don't just you can't just forever assume that everybody read your words or heard your voice and picked up your intention the way you intended it. So you'll do some spot checking. And depending on how important the issue was or how complicated, you'll do more or less. Sometimes you'll do none. But man, you just had a big staff meeting and you announced that the company's merging with somebody and there might be headcount impact. Wow. After that one, you want to go office to office. So what did you think of that meeting? How do you feel that impacts you? How are you feeling about it right now? Right? That's totally different. Okay? Verify. What did you think we said? Like, say, after something heavy like that. Or you do a performance review with somebody. Come back a couple days later. So, what were your takeaways? What do you think I said? What do you think I said to you about your performance last year? Okay? Verify. Sufficiency. Sufficiency. And this is similar. I touched on this before, but wow. This is making sure you've given the person enough of the relevant data points that they can successfully make the change that you want them to make. I can't say, Derek, you want to have lunch at noon? Well, I could. But then he'd have to say, sure, did you mean today? Yeah, I meant today. Inefficient. My cost per this exchange is going up, right? Where did you want to have it? Oh, I just assumed we'd go to the same place we always go. Oh, well, okay. Do you have money? Well, actually, I don't. Can you spot me today? Oh, okay, that was insufficient communication the first time. All right, here we go. Humanity. Yes, it's business. Yes, we need to be efficient. But, man, I've seen a lot of bloodless, inhumane communications in business that just ignore that we're flesh and blood, right? So you're not going to yuck it up and tell your life story on every communication, but let your personal brand shine through a bit. And I'll give some examples, but, you know, you can't just be an ATM or a vending machine spitting out concise digital code, right? Man, you know, and why is this so critical? Because, again, it's about behavior change, changing their behavior. And when are people most comfortable hearing you and changing? It's when they feel safe. When people feel safe, they're most amenable to change and reception. So if you consistently communicate in a way where you don't resemble a living thing, but you resemble a digital thing, a lot of people will start to not feel safe because they can't relate to you. They're at their cube or their desk having all these feelings. They're having good days and bad days, and your emails are just coming out matter of fact, every single time, and they're starting to think you're a different species than them, right? That's unsafe. That's an unsafe feeling. Oddly enough, coming from me, simplicity is the last one. Simplicity. It's business, and ideally, you want to communicate once. You're a great communicator. If you say your piece, and then you say, "Are there any questions?" and people truly say, "Not really," home run. You killed it. You nailed it. Right? That's efficient. And so, in a business context, keep it simple. Use simple words. Use simple phrasing. Use short sentences. Just boom, boom, boom. Longer your sentence, the more odds, the more commas in a sentence. I love writing and talking in a long, complicated way, okay? But in business, that's not going to be the most profitable way. Maybe if you're a college professor in English literature, you can wax poetic. But in business, get to the point. So that sort of ends the do's, and I couldn't help myself. I added a couple don'ts. So there's a special note. There's a special note in this ramp-up guide, and I feel like reading it. It says, if you would like to reserve for yourself a special place of scorn and derision in the heart of your coworkers, here are the two very best communication practices to make part of your personal brand. The first one basically says, whenever you get an email, always hit the reply all button. Reply all. Make sure everyone knows that yes, you will be at the ice cream social, or no, you will not. Just assume that everyone is keenly interested in your feedback to that and every other email. That works really well. And I give the definition for ostracize after I make that point. Okay? And the second is this. Make it your regular practice when you communicate to a person in business to courtesy copy their boss. Your regular copy. Your regular. And I give the Webster definition for pariah after I make that point. Okay? So, let's sort of do kind of a summary. There's a section in here we call, how do I go do it? It's a bit of a repeat. Number one, before your communication, And all these things, you'll internalize them. You're not going to have a checklist, and you're going to communicate efficiently. You're going to learn these. You're going to internalize them, and it's just the way you're going to go about things. Okay. But when I force myself to think out, what are the things that I go through or one should go through, it kind of comes out with these numbered lists. So number one, before your communication, be clear on why are you commanding this person's attention and their time. When you communicate someone, you're interrupting what they were doing. And in essence, you're saying, hey, Greg, it's important that you stop what you're doing and you add into your mind what I want you to think about. Well, from Greg's perspective, there should be a pretty decent reason. So be clear, why am I uttering or issuing or sending this communication? What is it that I want Greg to do? What do I want him to know so that he can do something? You should know that objective. Number two, decide which media. I'm going to talk to Greg in person, or I'm going to send an email or a text, right? Be kind of deliberate about it. And by the way, these things force you to sort of not be lazy, right? And to be deliberate and conscious and not living and acting on autopilot. Number three, include in your communication only those people who genuinely need to know about it. People are busy. They're busy. Their inboxes are full. Don't add to their inboxes or their time or their attention if they don't genuinely need to have their behavior changed in some way. 4, like I said, put the call to action, quote unquote, the call to action early in the communication. Deanna, will you please call me prior to 9 p.m.? There was the call to action, because I need to find out whatever, supporting data. And also, that was so funny what you texted on Facebook, humanity, okay? Out. And if she was really busy and flying fast, she's like, I need to call Jay by 9. Yes, I will or I won't. But at least she knew the call to action. I put it early. And number 5, give all the facts necessary for the person to make that behavior change. And number 6, check if any questions remain. So I'll pause there before I go into some examples. I have, because it's easy to say all that stuff, I thought up and wrote down 5 examples in different scenarios to kind of demonstrate what this would look like, because it's not all fancy and formal. Any questions on any of those things that we covered so far? No? Okay. All righty. That was me verifying. So was it clear? Did you get all that? Okay. All right, examples. Here's one. Hey, Derek, want to meet for lunch at noon at Alberto's? But I have no cash, so I need to spot me. Let me know if that's okie dokie. Right? Specific, sufficient, got to the point. Okay. Number 2. Paul, will you please come by my office when you receive this message? Bring the Thunderbird proposal because I need to understand why profit dipped in March relative to April. You've done so well on this. But tomorrow I will just need to explain the variance to the board, okay? Thanks. Number 3. Ken, I'd like to tell you great news. Your bonus was approved and you will see an extra $7,000 in your next paycheck. You earned this because of all your hard work that caused you to come in at 127% of plan. Right on. Right. You guys are thinking, what's the big deal? That's so easy. But, it is so easy to have gummed all of those up. So easy. Go look in your inboxes. You'll find chaos. Chaos. Number 4. Hi, Brenda. I need to discuss with you John's work quality. I think it's time he went on a correction program. His last report was unusable because he did not update the data from last year. This is the 5th time in the last 6 months. Will you please be prepared to have that discussion with me in our weekly one-to-one? Thanks, and please know I'm here to support you and John's success. I think this will really be what John needs to turn the corner. Right? Start off with the main point. Add supporting detail. And then get out. Give sufficient detail, right? I mean, imagine if you're Brenda, right? I probably answered the first 4 or 5 questions she would have asked me. What's it about? Well, how come? Well, why do you feel that way? Well, when are we supposed to talk about it? Just boom, you just hit them all. Done. So what you're going to get back from that is, okay. And she's going to go study and be prepared and have an opinion and show up and be prepared for the conversation. Yay! I treated us both really well. Number 5. Hi, customer Tim. I'm sorry to let you know that your order will not arrive on the 15th like we promised. It will instead arrive by the 26th. I'm very sorry. We have a supplier that had equipment problems and missed a key delivery to us. We intend to discount your order 20%. Do you feel that that is fair? We really appreciate you as a customer. I want you to know that our operations people are already re-engineering our process to make this outcome less likely to recur. I'll keep you apprised of that. I'll also give you a few extra mulligans next time we're out on the links, okay? Ha. So, I'll pause again. Questions from this august group of Go Ramp Up members and guests and sponsors. Okay, there's more. There's more. Okay, so the last section is called Food for Thought. And we always try to put a set of questions that are provocative, that will help you kind of mentally dive deep on this and really give you some room to dig into it and make change. I'm trying to change your behavior, and I'm trying to impact your emotions because I'm communicating you in a business context. Number 1, what business communication situation do you find the most challenging? Anybody want to say a business communication situation that they find challenging? I bet you realtors all the time have challenging communication situations with clients. Derek.
I think you kind of hit the most difficult one is email. Communicating people through email, especially when it's a situation or a pretty intense conversation and people communicating back and forth.
Yeah.
Same with text, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that situation happens over. And you
Yeah.
kind of have to, now I get to the point where I see it's coming and I stop and I go, we need to talk on the phone or we need to get together because this is not,
Yeah.
I'm in a different state of mind than whatever you're in, or you're reading my email wrong, or whatever. That happens a lot.
So for the benefit of the recording, the point made was a challenging situation is when there's an emotional issue or topic and people are trying to address it via email. And of course, yeah, that goes sideways all the time. Okay. Here's another question. Which of these best practices that we covered tonight could you give your attention for the next 30 days to make the greatest positive change? So there's a list of 7 or 8, right? In other words, where's your vulnerable area? What's the thing that you do, maybe habitually or recurringly, that makes business communications tricky for you or challenging sometimes? Number 3, if you make the 3 most key changes to your communication habits, what would be the most beneficial impact on your business? Okay. Number 4, this one's important. Oh, man, you see a lot of this. Oh gosh, you know what? I'll give a personal example. When you do not reply to a person's communication, what impact do you suspect it makes on them? Negative.
People don't forget.
Yeah, people don't forget. I've always thought it says a lot. And whether that's true or not, there's probably lots of people like me who think it says a lot when there's just no response. People have these things called gremlins, or their inner critic, and the most common one is, I'm not good enough. It's the most common one. Probably about 85–90% of the people have some version of the I'm just not good enough gremlin. And those folks, you don't respond to their communication, it's easy to trigger that I'm not good enough gremlin. And it has all kinds of different versions. I'm not important, I'm not valuable, I'm not appreciated. What kind of behavior change are you going to get from somebody who you have caused to feel more not valuable, not appreciated, not important? Number 5, when you send a communication that contains no salutation, hey Bob, or greeting, hi, no sentence punctuation, commas, capitalization, or appropriate capitalization, what alternate message have you sent to the recipient in addition to the message you intended to convey? And which will the recipient hear more loudly? I'll say that again. When you send a communication that contains no salutation or greeting, no sentence punctuation or appropriate capitalization, what alternate message have you sent to the recipient in addition to the message you intended to convey? Which will the recipient hear more loudly? Right?
Well, that stuff detracts from what you're really trying to communicate.
What else? Yeah, it detracts from what you're trying to communicate. What else does it say to some people? What are they going to hear?
You don't care.
You don't care. They're going to hear you don't care. You don't care what? You don't care what?
You don't care whether they can really read or understand. It could be like the run-on of all run-ons, but if you're guiding them through what you want them to understand.
So you don't care enough to take the time to say hello, Bob.
Exactly.
And take the time to...
They weren't worth the expenditure of calories for you to stroke a couple extra keys on your keyboard. They just weren't worth that extra 4.5 seconds at the keyboard. Some people will take it that way, right? And then number 6, how can you concisely impart your personal brand into your communications? Your personal brand is that uniqueness about you, right? So every communication, you can't say, by the way, I love animals. I love little fluffy animals. And I'm thinking about them today, and I wish I could save some. You can't put that into every communication. But you do have some uniqueness to you. You've got a brand. You've got a nature, which is part of your juju, your mojo. It's part of why clients pick you and companies hire you. So how can you concisely get that into your communications so people can feel that it's you and not any random person that they're communicating with? And then last, this has 3 questions in 1 question. So I guess this is 7, 8, and 9. What might be part of you that makes it difficult to communicate in the way recommended by this guide? Yeah, you heard me right. I'm talking about you now. What might be part of you that makes it difficult to communicate in the way recommended by this guide? What might be the benefit of resolving that? What might be the cost? So that's it for this subject of Business Communication 1. Let me open it up and see if there are any questions about anything that was covered. I nailed it. There are 0 questions. Well, in that case, thank you everybody for coming, and thank you to Deanna Armario and Keller Williams Realty for sponsoring us for this year and providing this beautiful training facility. We really appreciate it. And we will be back here on the morning of the 20th, Saturday the 20th. It's 9 to 10. We'll be in the room at 8:30 setting up. And the subject is listening, and that's under Go Live. So that's about personal development. So that'll be more about a personal attribute, okay? Because again, at Go Ramp Up, we do 3 things. We help you move toward mastery on business networking. We help you move toward mastery on business performance. And we help you move toward mastery on personal development. So it's like having a networking coach and a business coach and a life coach all wrapped together in one in a membership. Thanks.
Thank you.
My pleasure.